This program has been brought to you thanks to the generous contributions of our patrons on Patreon. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. And for more content like this, be sure to check out the Modern Alchemist channel on Patreon.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
So on the fun side, before I get into Lauren's question, because I think this might actually relate to the fun side, I'm super excited about seeing the next Matrix movie. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sort of pumped.
Yeah.
I remember back in '99 when I first saw the first one, and I was working for corporate America at that time as Cressy Corp, doing this kids race against drugs thing. So I was going all over the country and promoting, drug awareness and all that. And so I was by myself, but I was still married. My family was at home. And so I'd see a lot of movies by myself because I've been a movie file my whole life. I love movies. Doesn't really necessarily matter what movie, generally just movies. And that one really changed things for me. Like that one, for some reason, it resonated with me, this idea of this layered reality. And that what we were perceiving is not everything. And so that was quite a while now for me. But at the time, I was still just coming out of the throes of fundamentalist Christianity and just trying to get a larger picture and compile that with all the stuff that I had learned in my secular education. And so then this movie came along and I was just like, wow, that really does feel like all of the things that we inherit as we are born. It is a matrix. It's this matrix of agreed upon tendencies where we tell ourselves, and it goes on and larger, and I'm not saying that our machine's running anything, or that this is simulated reality or any of that, but just it gives you a broader scope so that when you come across texts like the Kabbalion, they tend to make more sense. And when you realize that the Wachowskis are Kabbalists, and when you realize that the set tone of color in the Matrix is reflective of Kabbalah, then it definitely, I just think it's going to be fun. They have an entire new color palette to describe the Matrix, which is gold and purple. Which seems really middle pillar to me, doesn't it?
It does.
Because before it was blue and green. And now the Matrix, at the end of the last Matrix movie, it transitioned. Sati said, check out the new sunrise. Notice that we have a color palette. That was the whole point of that, was that sunrise is golden and blue or purple and gold, if I remember. So, and that's what most of the Matrix seems to be in this next movie. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of transition that they're teaching when we go.
And the story is very agnostic, actually.
Oh yeah, right. Absolutely. So no doubt about it. Especially when you have an oracle go, do you see that over my threshold? That those words, over the threshold, is and is to pass beyond. One must know oneself, and it's placed over a threshold for a reason. Because now I can talk about Martin's question, which is internal thresholds. And so your question, if I recall, and I'm going to quickly check before I get too excited, because I know someone might just pop a question in for me. Here we go. What do we got? We got something. And this will also let me, okay. So Lauren liked it. Yay. And here is what are your thoughts on the topic of inner thresholds? I think that there is more or less thresholds in each of us that prevent us from being who we really are. What is the best way to deal with inner thresholds? And that's why we talked about the Matrix, because that threshold of Temet Nosce is the threshold. For him to pass in that movie out into the rest of the world, and to actualize his potential, as the one, which I believe all of us are the one in one category or another. We all possess within us the capacity to affect the universe around us and to shake off those spectral bullets, that are coming at us. I think each of us can develop the capacity, and I love that the way he does it in the movie. If you remember that first gun scene when all the agents are shooting at him after he resurrects, and he's just like, no, and he just stops it, and that idea of him turning and projecting his defense and denial of the existing reality and imposing his own when he flexes, and then suddenly you see the reality bulge around him. I think that's something that each of us can do, but it requires that we come to terms with who we are. And so what we do internally is we set up all kinds of thresholds to defend our psyche against trauma. Most human beings collectively, and I'm sure any CIA interrogator would agree with me, will do anything to get out of discomfort, let alone pain, especially if it's persistent. We'll just do whatever is necessary. And if it persists over long hauls of time, then we will file for divorce, or we'll run to a different state, or we'll leave our community, or whatever's causing that pain, because the alternative is death, really. And hopefully the pain hasn't bludgeoned you to the extent where death seems like a viable alternative to actually stepping through the threshold and understanding the beast monster on the other side. And usually what we do is we inflate that beast monster on the other side. We make it really terrible. We fill it with spikes and thorns and savagery and acid blood and everything that would frighten us as a person. And the reality is that the thing on the other side of the threshold is also us, because we are the threshold and we're on both sides of it. And so my approach, there are varying approaches to this, and this is this could be the id, this could be the shadow as described by other philosophers, and many of them, in their pursuit of light, in pursuit of a higher self, practice denial, severance of that. There's a whole Star Trek episode where Tasha Yar dies. There's this pit monster that's all black and sucks Riker in, and they find out by the end of the episode that it is the composition of an entire population of people who ascended, and they ascended by casting it all off and creating this pit of black tar, filth, hate, everything, all that they severed from themselves. The problem with doing that is it will always come back to you. It's you. There's going to be at some point in your magical working where it's just like Inception and the ex-wife. It will show up at the absolute worst time that you're trying to get something done. And for me, anyone who's done any kind of ritual magic that is extended more than a day, where preparations are like 30 days, so you're for a lunar cycle, and you're every day doing something, and the last thing you want is to have to restart that crap on day 26. Because in the middle of that thing, you lose complete focus and unravel because of this thing that you've cast aside. So for me, as someone who has had that beast monster on the other side of the threshold, the middle pillar says that we must embrace it. To walk the middle pillar means you don't cast it aside. Casting it aside is being on the pillar of mercy and shunning anything and everything that is less than your vibrational stature. The middle pillar says to understand that, to embrace it, and to forgive that. So if you have those things in you, then forgive yourself of the tendencies to fail, to seek failure, to sabotage yourself. And instead of hating that and shunning it and not seeking to compromise with it, to become one with it, and comprehend it and understand it. By shoving that away, it comes back always to us. The moment that we embrace it, we take it into ourselves, we know ourselves, meaning that there is an aspect of you that you've not come to terms with. And the pillar of knowledge is the middle pillar. It is the middle pillar. There's understanding, there's wisdom, and the middle pillar is knowledge. And so the Gnostic path is in fact the shortest and most direct route to the divine. Because ultimately a recognition is that by accepting this darkness that exists in you and blending it with your light so that it's not dark, it's gray, which is also the middle pillar, by seeking to attenuate that so that you have both hands at play, you then climb your way up the center pillar, the middle pillar. And it's done through self-knowledge. And this is the hardest work of personal alchemy, in my opinion. It is the absolute hardest work you will ever do because it constantly requires you to be self-aware. In those moments, I've caught myself now. I know that I give myself permission to be angry. I actually know that now. I know that for me, if I'm exploding and being raw, it's theater, because there's a whole section of my psyche that's calm and blissful as the deepest part of the ocean, watching all that go on and go, really, get a grip. And the other part of me is going, but I'm actually enjoying the anger. Coming to terms with the fact that anger can be pleasurable, that you can delight in that fecund, huge emotional outpouring and the power. There's power there. There's this self-affirmation in anger where it's like, I'm angry. And you're just, and of course, it's a self-affirmation. So it's this affirmation of the body, this. The rest of you doesn't really get angry. The middle self is experiencing it through its connection to the physical self. And the higher self, of course, like I said, is placid and going, really. I've never had my higher self feel angry. I have had my higher self have a sense of indignation, which is different, right? Meaning that something is so wrong, to even your higher self that you're like, no, that is just wrong. And you have a line and you recognize that line is part of the thing. The truth is, there's no limitation here. There are no rules that say to us that we have to behave. As far as I can tell, no one is being punished now or later for whatever conduct they have. What happens is it's your alignment. Where do you play in the chorus of life? How do you harmonize with the music of that? Do you choose ultimately to support the void and the shadow, and which ultimately has a sense of rejoicing in the physical, or do you seek altruism, which the rewards are something else, the rewards of the heart, because you can't really grasp what it means to another person to bail them out when they're needing an ear to hear you or something, when they're so frustrated, they just need someone to just shut up and just listen to me for a minute. Don't fix my problems, just listen to me, because I need another human being to help me experience this. Like, that's often what really it comes to. And if we seek the light, we're going to have more people coming to us like moths to a flame, seeking to co-experience life with you. I personally, you'll know, in fact, which path you've chosen. And the way to know the path, even if you're on the middle pillar, it really is the directionality of your face, because we stand in profile, just as Keter stands in profile, is seen as an ancient man standing in profile. So we see one side of his face and the other side we don't know. When we walk the middle pillar with Keter, we turn in profile with him. And so it's not a denial of my shadow. It's there. It simply doesn't reflect itself directly in my actions. So someone, and this is where you get into this idea of demonic and angelic energies, because just like in the cartoons, your little demon sits over here on the right and your angel sits on the left, right? Those are the two pillars. And the description is you now are in the middle pillar in those cartoons, listening to one. And as you talk to the angel, you go into profile. And that shows you the direction of the directionality of your action. Which way are you going to go? When I think of demonic energy, I use the Testament of Solomon as a kind of allegorical guide, because I think at the most it's probably pseudepigraphal, but maybe apocryphal, but I'm really thinking it's pseudepigrapha, which is just someone wrote some stuff and attributed it to this ancient writing and bridged it, and now it's there with all the other occult books. The thing that's good about it is that the Testament of Solomon, if you're not familiar with it, it shows how Solomon was built the temple of God, and that he did not use angelic effort. That in fact, he had a one ring, which then empowered him over all demonic forces. And when you think astrohistorically that Solomon, abbreviated as Sol, is our sun, right? So David is the king, which would be Jupiter. So Solomon is the sun. Then the ring could be seen as the asteroid field, for instance, which rings us. And so he's given one ring to rule them all. And with this power, he binds them. Oh, Lord of the Rings, right? But in fact, Solomon performs the exact same function. The building of the temple then, is seen from that standpoint, is the building of us. We then become the temple. But in order for us to work, we are in Verno, non-green, inorganic materials, right, are applied for our creation. So we're made out of iron and calcium and all these other different ingredients that actually comprise the human being, right? Separately, they're just stuff. Together, suddenly it's me and you and everyone else, and we're unique because of the expression of our nature, right? How we work with life. So we then, as inheritors, the demonic forces deal with shadow, the angelic with light. If you were to think of it in terms of a light spectrum, then the angelic, blue, over here in Chesed, and the demonic over here in Gabora, right, in red. And the idea is that in nature, we know that the higher frequency light destroys and cleanses things, which is exactly what you read in the Bible every time you talk about angels. Also, their function as messengers. Why? Because high frequency light can get through almost any material. So the exception being lead, right, and other heavier elements, which essentially resist the presence of light to such an extent that they are impenetrable. And I find it interesting then that Saturn its element is lead, right? And I also find it interesting that we have a similar thing going on in our own chakra, right? Where the idea is to take the lead of the heart and elevate it into gold, and anyway, make yourself penetrable to the spirit. But in the end, what we are then we are comprised of those two things, which psychologically then expand out into us in multiple permutations, right? And as I indicated before, but we are combined of both the light and the darkness, material and the spirit. It's why, for instance, we as human beings generate light and can cast a shadow. So we both can produce and create deprivation. So it's our dual heritage as the Nephilim, those that are the children of the sons of God and the sons of men, or the fusion of demons and angels, or however you want to mythologically put it all together. It works in that context. And so when you apply your inheritance knowingly, when you say, okay, I understand what it is that I am, you choose you will always choose a side. You will. You can't be truly neutral, because as humans, there's too much of us to drag us to the other side. If If a person is left unattended without any kind of moral coaching, say, then they'll do whatever they want. And I give you all the children on the planet, which get in trouble because they don't know better, right? They just will do what they want to do, what they feel like doing. So-and-so angered me, so I punched them in the nose. I've had that happen with my kids. Why did you do that? I was angry. Well, why are you angry? Because they took my toy. It always comes down to something material that's theirs, right? It wasn't because I was angry because of some existential thing. Can you imagine? So these inner thresholds then represent your self-established boundaries. They represent what you have put into place to protect what you feel requires protection. And when you become angry, your anger identifies for you what it is that you seek to protect. That's what it is always. If your body is injured and then you shoved me, now I'm angry about being shoved because I could have been injured. But then you can also be angry for any number of non-physical reasons. This happened at work. As a result, I'm dealing with all this extra stress and I'm angry because of this external pressure that's being applied to me psychically or whatever, just whatever is comprised with the word. Might be because something's happening to someone close to you and you become angry because you seek to protect them or your family members or what have you. But anger, to me, we fear it so often because we don't understand it. But to me, it's literally your inner person crying out, going, these are the things I care about right now. So if you take time to understand what triggers you, what makes you angry, it will give you power. Because then you can make a decision. Now that I know that this anger is a reflex response, do I want to be reflexive? Do I want to do that, or do I want to have a conscious choice? And I'm always in favor of conscious choosing. The instinct definitely has its place in our lives, for sure. But conscious choice to me is superior because it means that you're taking into account all three aspects of time. You're looking at the past, you're looking at your current circumstance, and your anticipation of the future. And you're synthesizing that into a decision. So conscious choosing, always the best way to go. Never forget what happened. Never cease to think about what could happen. And don't forget where you are at the moment. So, and that applies to everything, like relationships especially, but everything. So the way to get through those thresholds, to me, is to create for yourself a door. This allows you to, if it's just an open arch and a threshold, to me, that's really intimidating because that means that whatever's on the other side can come through. It's like closing the door in your closet. The stuff in the closet represents the unknown entropy of your life. If you close the door on it indefinitely, you'll never come to knowledge of it. On the other hand, if you leave the door open all the time, it literally seems to spill out into the rest of the room over time. Anyone who's had a messy room or seen someone like that with the closet, it just spills out. And then you have to deal with it. So if you wish to deal with it on your terms, then psychically create for yourself a barrier which is controllable by you on your side. And it's really interesting. There's a few esoteric plates that come to mind with regard to doors and stuff. One of them happens to do with a visitor with many keys, and he's an elderly guy. He's holding all these keys in his hand, but there's no doorknob on the door. And so what that teaches the initiate when he meditates on this is that you're on the inside. You're not this guy on the outside. That guy represents the keys to everything but you, because there's no knob, there's no lock on his side of the door. You're trapped on the inside until you open it up and accept the keys, which he's literally holding out for you. I wish I could remember. It's been years since I've seen this plate, but it kind of lives rent-free in my brain all the time, because every time I come up to one of these places in meditation, I see the image of this man holding the keys in his hand, standing at a door with no doorknob. And for years, I thought all kinds of things until I realized I'm inside. That's my house. And no one can get in unless I let them. And I can't get out unless I open the door. So a lot of us live like that, contained inside of these inner thresholds, never truly stepping beyond them because we're afraid of what we've projected to be on the outside. And almost always, I think, and this is definitely for me, the fear is, am I not going to be accepted? Am I going to encounter some form of pain, which typically would be in the way of rejection, right? And for anyone who's been rejected once, twice, multiple, hundreds times, you get this sense of rejection, even though it might be over just this one aspect of you, it feels total. It's the entire person is rejected, not just this aspect of you. And therefore, why put myself out or something? Why get outside of the door? Why press against the threshold of my mind to maybe be more than I am inside of my box? So, yeah, inner thresholds are tough, but they always have Temet Nosce written on the top every last time, because the way to out the door is to know yourself. It's the only way out. And that speaks strictly to alchemy in the middle pillar, using both sides of your consciousness, the light and the dark, embracing your weakness and recognizing that maybe it's not as weak as you think. Maybe you've judged yourself to be weak in that aspect because you fear that if you exposed that weakness, people would reject you. So you reject yourself and box that shit up in a little hole somewhere, hoping it doesn't spill out at some unfortunate time. And it always does. Weakness always does. And it's never as bad as you think it is. Usually a lot of the weakness that we have are actually strengths. They're just hidden in there. And you just, when you embrace it and you recognize what's part of that, you can turn it because it polarizes. You can polarize it to your advantage and then reside on that aspect. When you eventually, as you walk the middle pillar, join Keter and look in the direction that he's looking, then you polarize. You definitely polarize. Because at that point, things become natural. It's less about doing it because you think you should or because you believe you should. It's just you. You just do it because it is you. And we already do a lot of things already that are just us. I've told tons of students over the years, if you find yourself losing interest in the esoteric, don't criticize yourself. Embrace what you have interest in and pursue that. This may have just been a stone on the walking across the river. And it just may be something that you stand on for a short period and then you move forward. Others of us, we create and manifest the stone and we're like, well, I want that stone over there. And when we walk and that is the path of the esoteric, where we manifest our foundations for ourselves because we know how, because we understand that those foundations are built upon ourselves and our character, our personal vibration, and that we can't stand on something that doesn't vibrate in harmony with ourselves. So how's that? Good. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
You bet.
It's very helpful.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I got, guys.
Yeah.
So this was fun, though. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it was. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you too.
All right. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.